Passenger 57, Hollywood versus reality.
Biggest damn Cessna I ever saw.
Coming up. Hey 7-4 crew, welcome back. If you don't know me, my name's Kelsey. I'm a 747 pilot. My channel 7-4 Gear is all about aviation. Today I'm here in Incheon, South Korea, and this is the view from my hotel room. Passenger 57 came out in the early 90s. It's one of the first videos I actually saved up with my own money and bought the video. If you've never seen the full movie, I'll put a link to it down in the description. I don't remember anything from this movie being dramatically wrong, but I also at the same time was a kid and I was watching things like WWE, so my judgment on reality may have been a bit skewed. Let's get into it.
FBI, thank you.
At the airlines, we do transport prisoners from time to time, but I'm not sure exactly how much of it I can tell you as far as what the rules are, but there are a lot of things in here that I'm sure I can tell you are very Hollywood. If a prisoner were to show up to the aircraft via a car like that, the police car would not have its sirens on. That makes no sense at all. That's very Hollywood. It's also not going to be a terrorist or somebody of high risk like they're suggesting this person is. Somebody that is a terrorist is not going to be flying on a commercial aircraft with a bunch of other people on it. The FBI also doesn't walk up nonchalantly in the middle of boarding and flash their badge and act like that. They're a lot more professional. Anytime that I've ever met an FBI agent because they were flying on my aircraft, they are very polite, they're very professional as far as how they're going to greet you and tell you that they're on board. They'll tell you that they're carrying a weapon or things like that. They're not just going to walk on and flash their badge and not look at you and just pretend like it's no big deal that they're walking on the plane with a prisoner. And finally, they're not going to sit a bad guy with handcuffs in the front of the plane, and they're not going to sit him in the aisle like that where he is at close reach to a lot of other people. That's not how they're going to transport a person like that. So essentially, everything in this first scene is all Hollywood. There's nothing in here that's accurate. Let's get back to the movie.
Two, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59.
Robert,
I need a special service of first class in 5 minutes.
I'll send it right up.
First thing, generally when catering comes on the aircraft like you're seeing here, the door's not going to be open. Generally what happens is the catering truck actually pulls up and they'll knock on the door, they'll come up, they'll knock on the door from the outside, and then they'll open the door from the outside and bring the catering on. It's not just going to be open. They don't just leave doors open like that because there could be an accident of a flight attendant or possibly a passenger falling out of the aircraft. And on larger aircraft like this, an L-1011 or let's say a 777 or a 747, falling out of a plane that high is going to hurt or possibly kill you. So that door is not open until the catering truck is pulled up and the security guardrails are up. On airlines where the flight attendants still do head counts, which is very uncommon now, they usually count the empty seats because usually there are a lot less empty seats than there are passengers. For example, at the regionals, the flight attendants would go and count all the empty seats that were on the plane. They'd write it down on a piece of paper, and then they'd give us what was called a section count. And what they would do is for each section, let's say this section should have 20 people, and they'd count, okay, 2 empty seats, so it's easier to know, okay, 18 people in that section, as an example. So they'd write that down for every section, and then they'd bring that up to us. And from there, we could get an exact head count of how many people were on the aircraft. You need to know that number for souls on board, for weight, things like that. So there usually is a head count, but you're usually going to count the number of empty seats, not the people. And the really cool flight attendants on those pieces of paper would write little funny things on there or draw pictures, or sometimes if you get some flight attendants, they draw very inappropriate things in there. But what can I say? Pilots are like children, so we're easily entertained. Obviously, this is how they got to the name of the movie, Passenger 57. But like I said, you'd be counting empty seats. And I don't think the title of a movie of person sitting next to empty seat number 57 has the same ring to it. So that's probably why I haven't been asked to do any movie titles. The most Hollywood part of the scene is the fact that the guy who's down in the galley and bringing the food up is also the guy who brought the food onto the aircraft, and he also looks like the guy who drove the truck. So usually you have one guy driving and one guy inside the catering truck, and obviously a different flight attendant on board the aircraft who's there as part of the crew. That same guy is not going to do all 3 jobs, because if you were to load all the catering stuff onto the aircraft and be there to help the flight attendants, who moved the catering truck, or is it just sitting there on the ramp? Okay, let's get back to Passenger 57.
Who's in charge?
I am.
Once again, who's in charge?
You are.
Excellent.
Who are you? What are you doing?
Wait, cut it, wait. It's okay. There's always somebody down here in the galley.
Hey, look, buddy, I just get paid to send food upstairs, all right? Give me a break.
All right. Frank. Look, we got a hijacked situation upstairs, okay? I need your help. Anything that you can do.
Obviously, now you can't open the door to the flight deck like what was taking place here in the 90s. However, in the 90s, that would be a possibility, so I'll give that a pass. However, something that caught my eye was the flight engineer, the guy that's sitting at a 90-degree angle to the pilots. He has 3 stripes on his shoulder. Generally, your flight engineers had 2 stripes. So that is something that's Hollywood. Something else that caught my attention was Wesley Snipes and the flight attendant jumping into that elevator. Those elevators are not that big, so to get 2 full-grown people in there is not very likely. Now, I've never flown on an L-1011, but I'm sure there are some veteran flight attendants here that watch the channel, and they would have tried to probably fit 2 people or 1 person or however many you could fit into an L-1011 elevator. Usually they have a weight limit, and I would guess Wesley Snipes, who was pretty jacked at the time, wouldn't be able to get in there with a flight attendant and be able to easily move down that elevator without any problems. So that seems a little bit unlikely to me. Again, I've never been on an L-1011 elevator, so I can't say for sure. I know the elevators that we have on the 747 are very small. You would have a hard time fitting 1 person in there and be very claustrophobic. If you are a flight attendant and you did work at L-1011, I'm sure that you have tried at least 1, if not 2 people in there, because I know flight attendants, like pilots, can be a bit mischievous. So if you have tried that, please leave a comment. Let me know how many people you could actually fit in there. All right, let's get back to Passenger 57.
What's the plan?
Make it to the avionics compartment. Once there, I can override the controls and bring the plane down.
What? This is a jumbo jet.
Yeah, I know. We don't have any choice.
Look, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it you who said to do exactly as the terrorist tells you to do?
He's not just a terrorist.
Well, how are you going to bring the plane down?
I'm gonna empty the fuel.
Are you out of your mind, Cutter? We could all crash.
Look, I need your help. Please.
Tell me you're good at this.
I'm the best.
Then do it.
There are a lot of compartments in this aircraft. Again, I've never been in the belly of an L-1011, but this looks more like the hull of a ship than an aircraft. Usually you're not going to have door after door after door that people can just easily move through. And the other thing is you have a guy who is a security specialist but understands the schematics and electrical system of the aircraft so well that he can just walk up and pull a wire or pull a switch and immediately dump the fuel.
I don't think so.
And he's dumping the fuel not knowing what the current fuel load is or when it's going to hit a target number that he needs to not have the engines run out of gas. So that makes no sense to me how he's going to just pull something, a circuit breaker, which is going to let fuel go out, and then he's going to know when to put it back in so that way they're able to land with some fuel on the aircraft. That doesn't make any sense. As I do Hollywood versus reality videos, I notice that Hollywood loves the idea of dumping fuel. It's on a lot of different movies. They love to dump the fuel, and I'm not really sure why, but they seem to love the idea. Yet every time the wings of an aircraft rip off, there is no fuel in there. So I'm not really sure where they think the fuel is, and I'm not sure why they love dumping fuel, but hey, this is Hollywood versus reality. All right, let's get back to passenger 57.
What's the problem? We're losing fuel. One way or the other, we're going down.
You better make preparations to land.
Why are we going back there?
Because it's easy to jump off the plane from the rear.
What?
It's easy to jump off the plane from the rear.
Tower, Atlantic International Flight 163. We're declaring an emergency.
Request immediate authorization to land, over.
Negative 163, we're not a commercial airport. Suggest you reroute.
Suggestion refused.
Repeat 163, we're not equipped to handle an aircraft your size. It's too dangerous for you to
Shut
try
up
to...
and listen.
It is too dangerous for you. See that the runway is cleared.
Nor call Atlantic International, see what the hell is going on, and call the hospital too, just in case.
First, you have Wesley Snipes walking through another compartment of the plane, and there's random clothes just strewn about. We do carry cargo on a regular passenger aircraft. Airlines usually make a little extra money by putting what's called belly cargo into the aircraft and transporting it. But it's not just free floating clothes that are just hanging out in the area like that, like it's your son or daughter's dirty clothes. That's not how it works. The other thing is he's saying that it's easier to jump off the back of a plane. I don't think there's really any good location to jump off of an aircraft, the front or the back. Obviously, if you jump off the back, you don't have to worry about getting sucked in the engine, so I'm not sure if that's what he's saying, but there's not really a good location to jump off an aircraft. Next, you see the flight engineer making radio calls. Now, since the captain is dead, I'll go ahead and give this a pass as something called crew resource management, which is how the crew works together to have a safe flight. It's not something that would normally happen, but I'll give it a pass. However, at this stage in the flight, the pilots, or the engineer in this case, wouldn't be talking directly to a tower. When they declare an emergency, they'd be talking to some air traffic control person who's in charge of a large area. The pilots aren't talking to airports as we're moving along. We're talking to air traffic controllers that are overseeing a large amount of sky. The towers at the airport are really only concerned with just what is very close in as far as for takeoff and landing at that particular airport. Obviously, it's a very, very critical phase of flight, so they're really focused on just what's happening right there at their airport and right nearby. You wouldn't be talking to a tower when you're that far away, and so that doesn't make any sense at all. The other thing is a terrorist is just interrupting the controller when he's talking. This isn't a telephone call. You have to transmit, and then you have to let that person finish their transmission, and then you can say something. It's the same like when you were a kid using walkie-talkies. It's the same thing. You can't just talk over each other. So that's not something that's accurate. And as well, you wouldn't say over at the end of your transmission. Nobody says that ever on the radio.
Land, over.
And finally, the other thing that really caught my eye was that you have a husband and wife, and the husband seems to be kind of running the show like it's a bed and breakfast, and his wife is there just as an assistant. Now, the reality is that it's not very common to have a husband and wife working together in a tower or on anywhere in air traffic control. I know a couple people who do it, but it wouldn't be in this kind of setup that you're seeing right here where they're just like, hey, you better go do this and do that, like he's running the show and she's there like as his assistant. That's not how it works. If you work in air traffic control and you work in the tower, you have your job and the other person has their job. It's not like you're working the tower and working all the radios and your wife is there to help you out whatever you need. That's not how it works. She's going to be trained to be an air traffic controller, and she's going to be up there doing her job, and he would be doing his job. You also wouldn't be calling the airline to ask him what's going on. You may talk to somebody at air traffic control, but you wouldn't just be calling up to a local airline saying, hey, I don't understand, why are you guys trying to do this? That's also not something that would happen. There was a lot of things in this scene here. All right, let's get back to the movie.
You better buckle in. The landing's gonna be rough.
Biggest damn Cessna I ever saw. All right, Otto, get somebody out to the runway. I'm gonna be up in the tower. Patrick, let's do something, huh?
There are so many hatches of this Elton 11 in this movie. As some of you may have remembered in the Executive Decision movie, there is a hatch on the 747 that gets you down into the avionics bay. So it's possible that there is one as well on the Elton 11. I don't think there's going to be this many floorboards to be able to get down there, though. This is too many hatches. That's not realistic. And I'm not sure why Wesley Snipes is saying that the landing is going to be rough. I'm not sure what information he has if he knows that they're going to be landing at a short runway, because there is a scenario when you land on a very short runway that you make the landing firm to help dissipate the energy. So either he knows that or it's because the first officer's flying. But hey, sometimes we have good landings. So that seems a little bit weird to me.
You better buckle in. The landing's gonna be rough.
All right, let's see what's next in this movie.
Assistance as they can get. You communicate with the airline staff. I'll coordinate rescue activities on the ground.
Right. And how do we get down there?
We step out. Gravity will do the rest. As soon as it stops, we jump.
So I'm still a couple years away from being able to upgrade and become a captain on the 747. I do something what's called cruise relief, which means when the captain goes to bed, I do take over control of the aircraft from time to time, and I'm in charge during that time of the flight. However, I am not ready to obviously be a captain because in this case, the captain got shot in the head, and yet he is still flying the aircraft. I don't know. I'm not ready for that. If I'm going to get shot in the head, I am done for the day, 100%. This is nothing bad towards the flight attendant, but what Wesley Snipes is suggesting is just not realistic. It wouldn't work if it was the pilot or the flight attendant. Once you land in this scenario, if you were a pilot or a flight attendant and you were part of a crew that there was a terrorist takeover and you were to get off the aircraft, you're not then going to run the show as far as how to get everybody else off the plane. All you're going to do is talk to the police or talk to the FBI or whoever's in charge, tell them all the information that you know, and then you're going to call your company and ask for a hotel, and you're going to ask for a hotel which has free breakfast because you know I love my free breakfast. All right, let's get back to the movie.
This is Chief Leonard Biggs, Lake Lucille Police Department. Now, if you tell me what you want, I'll tell you what I can deliver.
I want this plane fully fueled.
If I do not see a fuel truck in position and functioning in the next 5 minutes, you will be responsible for a great many deaths.
Well, I'm not fully authorized to grant any demands at this time.
I've just executed 5 passengers. I will execute 5 more every 3 minutes until you find me someone who is authorized to meet my demands.
Look, I'll make some calls.
While you're on the phone, I'll be killing another group of passengers. Let me know when I should stop.
Now, wait.
Do we have an agreement?
Fuel's on its way.
Check and mate.
So commercial jets are not fueled the same way that your regular small Cessna or a small plane that a general aviation aircraft would be. They're fueled usually under the wing, and they're fueled with pressure. Your typical small aircraft that you would typically see at an airport, you're going to feel over the wing, and it's usually going to be gravity that's pouring into the wing. So they're saying here this tiny little airport, which isn't equipped to handle a large commercial jet, has the equipment in order to do pressurized refueling and have air stairs to get up to this large aircraft. So that doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. Either you are a large airport and you have those things, or you are too small to accommodate a large aircraft and you do not have those things. You may have seen on my Instagram, sometimes there's times where I've had 3 different fuel trucks come on underneath the aircraft to actually fuel us up. And I've posted photos on my Instagram showing how it hooks up there, but it just is not something that you would get at your general aviation airport. You would have totally different setups at a commercial airport for passenger aircraft and your typical general aviation aircraft, which they're saying this is that type of airport. So that doesn't make any sense at all. All right, let's get back to passenger 57.
Get this plane off the ground. Move!
What the hell are we gonna do when we catch it?
You're gonna watch me sneak on the plane without a ticket.
Get me close to the landing gear. Hey, John! Oh! John! Oh, man! Oh!
Approach control is Lake Lucille. We have a hijacked aircraft.
I want every radar station in the southeast following that plane.
We're on it already. You read me approach control.
I'm not sure if you noticed, I started laughing when this guy ran right in front of this running engine. If you were to run right in front of an engine, and then there's another guy running right behind the engine, but if you were to run right in front of the engine carrying somebody on your shoulder like that, that engine would probably suck you and him into the engine, and then the guy who's running behind the engine of an L-1011 engine like that is going to get blown over. So that makes no sense at all whatsoever. I don't think I need to tell you that hanging off the back of the nose gear like that is obviously not going to work at the speeds they're going, so I'm not even going to talk about what Wesley's doing there. And next you have the guy on the tower who's talking on a landline, a regular phone, to another air traffic controller. And he is saying, "Do you copy me?" or "Do you read me?" That is not something you would ever say on the phone because you're on a phone, you're not on a radio. So you would just be talking to someone like normal and tell them, hey, this is the situation, and that's it. Hopefully we get some more realistic scenes because so far most everything in here has been very Hollywood. Let's see what's next. Okay, that's enough of that fight scene. I can't take any more of that. There is something that is accurate here, and there's something that's not accurate. One, like I talked about earlier, we do transport cargo in the belly of the aircraft. And since they're in the belly of this aircraft, which has apparently unlimited compartments, there is normally cargo in there. However, it is not free-flowing cargo like you're seeing there. It's not somebody's basement. They're not just going to stack up some boxes and put them against the wall. That is not how it works. But there is cargo in there. Obviously, you wouldn't just leave it free-flowing like that because as the plane is moving and there's turbulence and you're stopping and you're going, that stuff would be flying all over the place. All right, let's get back to the movie.
Control tower, this is John Cutter, flight 163. Do you read me?
Loud and clear, John. What's your status?
Single at the moment, but I am working on it.
All right, first let's talk about the bullet hole. I talked about it in Air Force One, but I'll mention it here as well. If you were to shoot out a window, that is possible, but if you were to shoot out the window, the plane would rather quickly depressurize. And once the plane becomes of equal pressure of outside, the door is not going to get sucked out. Obviously, the pilots would be slowing down, they'd be descending and doing other things, and I talked about it in that Hollywood versus reality. But this is not realistic. Once a plane is equalized pressure, it's not going to then suck the door out. A great example of that happening in real life, as some of you may remember, there was a Southwest flight a while back. The engine failed, it was uncontained, and it ripped a hole in the side of the hull of the aircraft. That hole sadly killed somebody, but it did not then just rip out a huge section of the aircraft. That's not what happened. So it's a great example of what it would be like in real life. And of course, my next question is, why is there always so much paper when there is a door that gets ripped off? In every movie, as soon as the door gets ripped off, a huge slew of books, single loose leaf paper just starts flowing everywhere, trash and everything like that. If you give all of your trash to the flight attendants as they go through the cabin, you'll probably never have to worry about a door getting ripped off on your aircraft, because otherwise, without things blowing around, it just wouldn't be very dramatic. Next, you see Snipes push the bad guy or kick the bad guy out the door. Now, at the speed that the plane is traveling, if that guy were to go out the door, you would not see him after about a half a second, because the plane's moving forward and he's falling down. So you would obviously leave him behind. He wouldn't just be falling directly down like that. I don't know why they would think with a plane moving forward that the guy would be moving at the same speed of the plane and falling forward. That's not how it would work. So you would see him go out the door and then never see him again. If you want to see another 1990s thriller that involves large cargo aircraft, check out the Hollywood versus reality that I did on Air Force One. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link to it right here. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up. The flight attendants do head counts. He said do. So at the airlines, we do transport pilots. We transport pilots. On airlines where flight attendants still do head counts, and it's not very common now because everything's so computerized, because there's usually more empty seats than there are passengers. Nope.